So today I'm here talking to Matthew Wood, who is very new on the freelance scene. When did you hand your notice in and finish, Matthew?
Hi Melanie, great to be here. Yeah, I finished my teaching employment at Christmas
Yeah.
after
So
after 14 years.
yeah, so this is why I wanted to
So
talk to you because you're so at the start of it, that it's all very for everybody else so far has been established in their freelance role, even though it might not be the one they thought it would be. They're established, they're making a living, it's working, they're going. So you to be right at the start, it's literally a half term into it. So thank you for joining us to talk about it. So how does it feel not to be in the classroom, not having been in the classroom for a half term?
yeah, I've written quite a lot actually on the way that being a teacher and the way that working with young people and serving young people and families um, taps into and becomes part of our identity. And I think to a large extent, that's a really healthy thing because what you invest in becomes part of you. And you can't be a successful teacher. You can't stand in the gap for young people and families and make a huge difference without giving a big part of yourself. And that's what I did for many years. So without doubt, it feels different. And I think as you explore transition, particularly as you get slightly older, and you're not so young as I once was, you think, okay, well, what does different look like? And that comes along with a whole host of emotions, um, uh, both really good and exciting, but at the same time, the feeling of okay, what I had known and what I had uh, built some level of security on for a long while is not there, and therefore brings up the need to get good people alongside you and really take control of your thought life, um, and keep in front of you the idea of the skills that you have, what you bring, and then in addition the reasons why and the excitement that brings.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's just have a quick whistle stop tour through your teaching career. So you said you taught
Yeah.
14 years. Was that, well, A, I don't even know what your subject was. And B, was it the same school? Did you move? Did you have promotions? Were you on the ladder?
Yeah. Yeah. So I loved being a teacher, and it's interesting that um, some of my reflections are that if you've left well and you've made a decision um, in the right way, then you of course you can carry all of those skills and experiences into the next part, knowing that they enhance and they underpin all that you can bring into into the future, rather than being something that you shy away from. Um, and in many respects, whether that's through my writing and whether that's through um, involvement in education or in schools, the door's not closed to contributing to that whole sector because I've got a lot to offer. But in terms of my conventional teaching career, um, it was amazing I remember how it began. I remember I'd done a couple of years after university. You kind of think you've set a certain pathway. I was thinking, well, how do I go back and become a teacher? How do I train? I'm not going to be able to afford that. I'm out of the university loop. Um, I remember actually saying to a friend, I kind of think that ship has maybe sailed. And I actually got a job working with behaviour in a school, um, which was really good in my early 20s. And it was identified that I was bringing a fair amount to the role. And right at the end of the year, shortly after I'd had that conversation, the head teacher approached me and said, Matt, we've got an opportunity if you want to train doing what was called a GTP
Yeah.
then. I suppose it's been replaced by school centre teaching and teach first programs nowadays, which are good. And the head teacher said to me, you could start that in September. And this was the June half term. And I knew in an instant that was the right thing. And as we talked about beforehand, Melanie, I feel for that period of time and for the period of time that I was a teacher, I was born to do it and indeed loved doing it. So I trained as a PE teacher, which was fantastic. And then in my first role as is commonly the case for PE teachers, we're quite adaptable and flexible, and actually we throw in quite quite a funny mix of the relational, but then like the absolute stringent organization as well, because we know, you know, if you've got cones and rugby balls flying around, you need to get things right. So I also I taught science for the first part of my career alongside that, and pretty quickly went into some pastoral leadership. Converted also to teaching maths in the classroom, which I loved. I absolutely thrived on groups where students were just knocking below that magic gateway of a C or a 4 or 5 as it is nowadays, and getting them over the line through confidence building, through relational practice, and all of the things that PE teachers probably do instinctively. And I finished my career as and that was 10 years in Birmingham, and now in Cambridgeshire, as you know. So 10 years in Birmingham in the same school with a wonderful settled team, which was one of the absolute joys of being within education. And then I moved to Cambridgeshire, which is closer to where I grew up, with my family, my wife and 3 children, and was able to pick up a leadership position again for the last part of my my teaching as an assistant head teacher, which mirrored some of the work I'd done in Birmingham as well.
Yeah. Right. So when did the disillusionment start to set in? Because you sound so amazingly positive about it all. What happened?
Yeah. I think that I think where I've come to reflect on it, I think for lots of people that I've spoken to within education, there's a sense of being, and I use this word hesitantly because there are joys every day, but a sense of being trapped, that what else could I do? Am I equipped to do anything else? Am I capable of doing anything else? What does that look like? And for me, I was conscious that a lot of my decision making was being rooted in what looked like probably sensible, logical thought. My pension, well, I can, if I do this, I could maybe do something else in 20 years' time. But it got to a point where I was thinking I'm missing out increasingly on the present, because I'm looking to, at one point I remember I was thinking, oh, blimey, I hope I'm going to have a pension that will allow me to buy my grandchildren an ice lolly. You think this is just not okay. So increasingly there was just a thought, well, is there something else? What are the other things that I want to do? How can these skills be used in other ways? And how can I make sure that I'm as present as I can be right now for my children who are still pretty young, and an awareness that actually the pie chart of my capacity needed to be slightly rebalanced for this next part.
Okay, so from a background of PE and maths and science, how did you land on the idea that you could function as a copy and content writer? Because I think
brilliant.
Pretty exclusively, I have interviewed a lot of copywriters, and I think exclusively they've been English teachers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've always written people's personal statements and their CVs, and they've always come to me for the ability to take what they are thinking and to turn this into digestible, streamlined words that reflect their story. Now, whilst I was a hard-working maths teacher, the emphasis on my maths teaching was hard work, and now actually I had to work really hard at it. Now, interestingly, I think that caused me to become a better teacher, because again, I had to simplify and work on the mastery, of course, but alongside that, but we're going to do it this way and we're going to practice it, and that had some really good results. However, in terms of my academic backgrounds, prior to my pursuit of PE teaching, I was more of a linguist, and I did my English A level and excelled and loved that, loved creative writing, and also in the depth of the Welsh valleys, I have an auntie who is a writer and a yeah, and so for years we would have periodically a book signed by my auntie. I think I was the feature. I think I was the focus of one particular poem, actually entitled Aunt, which was good. That would appear at my parents' house, and so there was always a sense of, actually, this is what I do. I write my ideas down. I write match reports for my class. I turn my hand at poetry and send it off to my auntie, and she says, "Oh, that's really good." Interestingly, actually, I can remember writing a load of poems for her that didn't rhyme, and a really nice gesture. She sent back a present just for me, a poetry book entitled "This Poem Doesn't Rhyme." It's just, so there was a background of using my words to communicate. Now, as a teacher and as a leader within schools, your words have huge power. So doing an assembly or 2 assemblies every week and saying, well, how do I make my words resonate with that 11-year-old or with that 16-year-old? That requires thought. That requires an investment in the craft of turning ideas into sentences and phrases that connect with people. So it's always been there, and something that just works, and I really enjoy.
Because I have noticed, obviously, the stuff you post on LinkedIn and your blogs definitely show that you are used to writing. I had picked up on that, but I didn't. I'd missed somehow along the way what subject you taught. So I find it really interesting
Yeah,
that
it is, isn't it? It's good.
you saw it as part of the role of being an assistant head and doing assemblies, using words well, which really good.
Yeah, and awareness of it, like an email to a parent, just needs to be read and reread, and the tone. Of course, any message can be read in a different way by the person looking at it. But the more you craft it, the more likely you are to get the tone right and the wording right and the phrasing right that connects with that person. And that could be to inspire, that could be to heal, that could be to engage. And I think one of the posts that I put on LinkedIn was about a letter that I wrote to the court as a character reference for a most wonderful student who's in Birmingham, whose life had gone down a tricky route, and they needed someone to and I could do this hand on heart. He was one of the best students I'd ever taught, to write a letter to the judge and to say, and my words were that now is not the time for punishment. Now is the time for healing, support, and to make a way forward for this young man. And it was amazing. I got a phone call from the family shortly after to say that the judge had referenced how I had communicated that young man's story. That's what copy and content writers do. They say
powerful.
They take the situation
absolutely.
and they communicate it. So it's a great thing to be doing.
So you've got all of these words and the ability to craft them and use them well, but you're still in the classroom. Talk us through how you went through the process of thinking, yeah, that's what I could do instead. That's what more there is. I can do that. Probably could make a living at it. Oh, I'm going to hand my notice in. Talk us through that.
Definitely. And I think there's no way to silver line and think within my writing there's an authenticity that doesn't do that. So there was a lot of fear that I would be that this is all I've known. These are all lies. We know an awful lot just through circumstance and life. And when you are wrestling with a decision, when you're doing the soul searching and the soul work that needs to happen at any point of transition, you need good people around you. And I was blessed enough to have a great and patient wife. And we were having a late night chat about what it might look like for our family if I were to pursue a new avenue for the next part of my career. And that's what I really like about how you've called it roots out of teaching, or it could also be roots into new things. And it was a sense of moving away from, but an idea of, well, what could I move into? But that was coupled and needed some aligning with this sense of, okay, I can do this, and I'm not going to be scared, but I'm worried about stability. I'm worried about how I will speak to people in the playground or other parents, and I'm no longer going to be Mr. Wood as I have been. I'm no longer the big question of what do you do? What's your job? I'm a PE teacher. I'm a maths teacher. I'm an assistant head. All of these things were pretty ready-made answers to those kind of identity questions that come up. But it was my wife actually who said, really, really succinctly, really sharply, shall we say, that you don't have to be Mr. Wood forever. Everyone would love to see a bit more of Matt. And without over egging it, that was a bit of a light bulb moment where I thought, okay, actually this next part doesn't need to be governed by a sense of I've got to just keep going. There are options. It may look different. The stability financially of pensions might look different for a short while, but life, we've got one crack at life, one crack at doing it really, really well. And whilst I had for 14 years been the best possible teacher and leader I could be, I almost had that permission to say I can explore some other avenues and do those just as well.
Yeah. So when did that conversation happen?
Yeah, so that was
there
in
much sort of
yeah
time between then and you actually going to school and handing over the letter?
Yeah, so that was at the start of this academic year,
right?
And then there was space for some honest, transparent conversations where I would decide that I would make a move at Christmas time, which is where we are.
Yeah. And so at that point, had you started writing for anybody? Had you had any paid gigs, or were you just sort of practicing your craft in your own time, ready to launch yourself on the world?
Yeah, so at that point there was an opportunity to so answer no, but exploring that in a purposeful and intentional way. Now, about 8 years ago, a colleague of mine had made a similar move. So it was a pathway that I was aware existed, and I was able to reconnect with that person and get some advice, undertake some qualifications also at the same time, and start writing and turn a routine of writing into a life rhythm that said, well, this is good for my thinking, this is good for my own personal well-being, but increasingly what I'm saying is connecting with people, and the formula of getting a tone of voice right and finding what an audience needs to hear and seeing what needs to be communicated, well, that in essence is what a copy and content writer does. And if you do that with the earnestness and sincerity of a passionate teacher, then that's a real asset as well. So there was a lot of kind of there was a lot of mindset work to be done as well that says, no, we can do this, and there's going to be a lot of uncertain moments, but back yourself and back the next bit, and it will probably look very different, which it increasingly is looking different. But don't let fear be the governing factor in the next bit.
Yeah. So you just mentioned then that you did some training. What sort of thing did you do?
Yeah, so there's
find it.
Yeah, great point. So I've seen it a little bit on LinkedIn actually. A number of people have a similar tag, College of Media and Publishing online course, which I've been super impressed with in terms of having access to an online expert who is looking at what you're producing, and is allowing you to get really good feedback, which is fantastic. And I like that from an academic sense as well, having being an educationalist. I've been really impressed with that. And they offer a whole range of courses on their their portfolio.
Yeah. And cost-wise, are they a big investment, or are they sort of not scary amounts?
Not scary amounts, but backed up with real professionalism and quality, which commands the money that you pay for it, which is good. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously every day when I go on LinkedIn, you're all over it. I see a lot of stuff from you. Is it paying off yet? Are you starting to get enquiries and leads? Just not because I'm like being nosy about your business, but just to give people an idea of, I mean, obviously it's very, very early days. I can't emphasize that enough. Literally 2 months in. So you're not going to be like replacing your teaching salary or anything. But do you feel that you're starting to get some traction?
Yeah, definitely. And through all of the things that you would do in person in within school life, you do that in the funny world of an online community, and you connect and engage and you listen and you learn and you contribute and you share. And in doing so, you build trust. And then when opportunities have arisen to write, produce your absolute best work, being open to editing, open to constructive criticism, and responding to what is needed. So yeah, that traction is growing, which is amazing. And it's as you'll know yourself from your own journey and the conversation we had just before we started formally talking. What a wonderful thing, isn't it, to produce something for a client or an agency, and say, well, I did that, and that's a really positive thing. So yeah, the traction is growing, but I think your question also taps into that idea of perspective, and I think it also makes you think about your expectations. The expectation of this period of time is that my plans were written in pencil and not pen. There was a freedom, a liberation to say, I'm going to absolutely love this next phase of period of time, taking my kids to school, picking them up. I'm going to write every piece of work that comes into the to the highest possible standard, and we're going to see this grow over time, which I think is just really healthy, and which again, there's within the online world, as a teacher, I was forever shepherding and guiding young people through the whole world of comparison and social media and all of those things. I think having an awareness of that is a bit of an asset, really, because there's a lot of utopian freelancing places that you can land on with 2 or 3 easy steps, and my experience is life doesn't work like that. So I think a grounding of graft and hard work is always good.
Yeah, it is. And when the graft and hard work that you're doing isn't because you've got somebody else's targets to meet, and nobody's going to thank you anyway, whether you meet them or not, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? So I had a really good question in my head then, it's gone. Do you know, I do this age. Anyway, so oh God, no, I've gone completely blank. Just talk amongst yourselves. Yes. Do you do any face-to-face networking?
Yeah, so that will be my my next bit. So I've got a friend who is a graphic designer. So there were some links that I'd already started to establish, which is good. But there are a number of networking groups within Cambridgeshire, which over time I will get along to and get out there and do. I love meeting people, and again, whilst they can be a bit scary because you realize that everyone's feeling their way through different areas of business and life, aren't they? So I will look to do that, and do that in a way that's views that as an opportunity. Do you do that,
I
Melanie?
do, yeah, and I found it initially quite intimidating. I didn't even know that there was such a thing, to be honest.
Yeah,
When I set my business up, I didn't actually know how I was going to get business.
yeah,
Just knew that people did, so I would learn. And somebody found me on LinkedIn, who is a principal for a referral marketing network in the Northwest called Network In,
amazing.
and she
Yeah,
invited me to a meeting. And they're called advocates in this particular. It's not BNI, I hasten to add. It's no, I've just told you it's called networking, so obviously it's not BNI, but it's kind of like BNI in the referral marketing type
yeah,
thing. And I've been with them for 3 years, I think, and I probably get about half of my business through referrals for
yeah,
working for people within the network, but also them referring me beyond that. And it is great. We meet once a fortnight. We talk about our businesses, we have a laugh, we give each other support, and we help each other. And
mm,
it's definitely been the making of my business, and it's really on a personal level as well, because I did find it intimidating when I first went, because I thought these were all proper business people, and there was me being the newbie. But actually, really welcoming and really supportive. And the thought, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because as a teacher, you can stand in front of a hall full of a whole year
yeah.
group, 300 kids, and think nothing of it. But the few times that I had to do talks to staff, oh, awful, awful, hated every minute of it, legs trembling, dreadful. So when I started doing networking, actually it was during the pandemic, so it was online, so it was all Zoom meetings.
Yeah,
And we didn't actually go face to face until I think about the April after that awful Christmas lockdown. And the first meeting for that, even though I'd been meeting these people online for well over a year by then, I was really nervous. But actually, in hindsight, now I realize that I didn't need to be nervous, because I would rather do an online, a face-to-face networking thing with a room full of strangers, even if they're all men in suits, than do another open evening. Oh, God, I used to hate open evening, and getting the parents to try and get them into your department so you could extol virtues. No, face-to-face networking is nothing like that. So I actually really enjoy it now. I like going into a room of people and meeting them,
yeah,
listening to them. Listening is the main thing, because if you listen to
yeah,
people, then they will listen to you, but you've got to listen
yeah,
first. And I've learned so much from people who are running businesses completely different to mine,
yeah,
but there are a lot of elements that you have in common.
yeah,
And it's really valuable. I would definitely recommend anybody, yes, do the online social media stuff, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever your audience is, but get in the room with some people as well.
yeah. Let them
Really
see you.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super helpful for me to hear, and yeah, and a prompt for the next the next chunk of the year
Mm.
to get involved in
I'm
that.
sure
I'll
every
enjoy it.
I'm sure every region, I mean, networking's just in the Northwest, but I'm sure there must be similar sort of quite localized networks. And the beauty of a smaller network, I mean, this network I'm in, that we have around 300 advocates across the network, and there are
Yeah,
18 or 19 different teams.
lovely.
And there's this thing called sector exclusivity. So you pay your subscription to be in your team.
Yeah,
And so I'm the proofreader in my team. No other proofreaders can even visit,
yes,
because I've bought.
yeah,
But the joy of the network is I'm the only one in the whole network, so I can visit any of the other team meetings as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
Whereas the accountants, there's an accountant in every team, so they can't really visit any of the others. Financial advisors the same, but creatives, there don't tend to be quite as many.
Yeah,
So you get you get a bit more bang for your buck when you're doing something like
I
that.
mean, that's brilliant. And I really liked what you said about learning, and the route into learning is through listening first. And yeah, that just always pays, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, you've got a school pickup to go and do.
Yeah, the joy.
It's a treat for you. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap up there and say thank you very much. I would like us to talk again in a year from now and see how you're going on.
Yeah, let's do it. That'll be great. That'll
Yeah.
be great.
Excellent. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much for your time, Matt.
Thank you.